What's up, Munir?
The sun is up, our drivers are on the road, and we're trying to book them.
Yes, sir. So, what we're gonna start to do for our fleet, but we will share this actually with the industry for anyone else that's interested. So we're gonna have this available to anyone, but we're gonna be making daily 10 to 20-minute videos, recapping the day before, adding any commentary on what's happening in the industry, talking about any changes that we are making or that our drivers need to know about. Um, I think, transparency is very important to people. I think especially in tough times, people like to know what's happening. People like to know what's going on, and that's what we aim to provide. As we always say, we can't control all aspects of the industry. We can't make the customers or brokers pay um, the rates that we would like to get. We can't, create a load for our drivers. But what we can do is do our best to keep them moving, and then give as much information as we can, so they are aware of what's happening in the industry, right?
Indeed. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. In the day to day, as you said, we'll try to provide some updates on what's going on, but really day to day, even sometimes hour to hour, we might encounter problems that are um, unlike in other industries where you might have 7 days that are completely the same. Here,
Hmm.
day to day things might change. So it's important that people are informed.
Yeah. Yeah, we see those day-to-day changes, and we always try to understand them on a deeper level, on a data analytical level, because we'll have a day where we book 60 loads, and then the next day we'll book 35 loads or 30 loads, and it's just, sometimes you can trace it to the why, and you can identify, well, we booked some long loads and this and that. But then other times it's really hard to. So we're always trying to make sense of what's happening. So yeah, today is February 28th, and we're gonna go ahead and begin by kind of recapping the day before. So how was yesterday for us loads wise?
Yeah, first of all, you just mentioned you can have one day 60, the other day 35. That's practically what happened to us this week, Monday and Tuesday. Monday, we had 56 loads overall. Almost everyone that was on the road was booked. And then come Tuesday, we had 40 loads. And for some reason, we just couldn't book drivers out of Canada, where Canada is usually, especially Ontario and Quebec, but especially Ontario, Toronto area, all down to Detroit. It's usually the best area we have. Yesterday it was a huge holdout up there. We couldn't move. We maybe moved one or two guys, and we had a couple of guys stuck. We're trying to get them moving right now, and of course we reacted on it, but only 40 loads, man.
40 loads, and how many did you say we had the day before?
It was 56,
How
56
many
loads.
active drivers?
I think we started this. Usually, the active drivers, how we look at it, if we look at it weekly, how many drivers we had throughout the week.
Hmm.
And then at the end of the week, we look at it and say, okay, we booked 220 loads on 64 active drivers or whatnot. I
Hmm.
think starting Monday, we had around 60 drivers that were available for loads. So we pretty much booked everyone. Okay, we should consider that some of them got afterloads, but we pretty much
Right.
booked almost
After
everyone
loads
Monday.
are
Afterloads is the driver is on a load and he gets the load before he finishes.
right. All right, so let's dive into yesterday to kind of look at it by numbers. So this is 227, Tuesday. Available is how many loads were available for us to bid on. We placed bids on 549 of them. We declined 320 of them. So that's what, 860, 70? So 870 loads we responded to. So Munira, what happened to the rest of them?
The rest of them are the loads, I guess, that our drivers are were not uh, interested for, meaning their setting was opposite to the load, so the load was not dealt with, nor the
No, no, because those are the ones that we did not even import into our system. So the
oh,
rest of them are loads that expired, loads that were offered to drivers in their yellow settings and they did not respond to. Okay. So when we
mm,
talk about, tough times and fewer loads available and maximizing, what you do with every load, we got to focus on this as a company. You know, almost half, I mean, a third of the loads that are available are expiring because drivers are seeing them, they're going to the yellow states and they're not placing a bid. Now, when we decided to build the app, man, do you remember a few years ago what the conversations we were having were?
I do, man.
It was all around, it's a powerful tool, and like every powerful tool, when you give it to somebody, if they don't know how to properly use it, or if they do know but they don't properly use it, it can be dangerous. I can tell you, under the old system we had, where dispatchers were more freely placing bids, um, this would not be the case. We would not have these many loads expired, right? So this is one of the biggest things that we have to work with our drivers on. Like if you mark something yellow, you got to keep a close eye on it. And I think we do our best in the office to follow up on them and to, remind them that there's a load. What's the instructions you give to the team there?
Well, there are loads. So pretty much on the yellow, we have something called available tab in the system. That means that every load that goes to the driver after 2 minutes, after the driver examined the load and they did nothing with it, the load gets to available tab. That means to us that there is a load. Driver saw it, 2 minutes, did nothing about it, or didn't even see it. So what we do, what was the instruction? Usually, I mean, always there is one person assigned to available tab to go through available loads that were examined or not examined by drivers, and on specific loads to reach out to driver and try to offer it again and try to do something about it, and ask them, did you see the load? There is this load coming up. So if you probably have those conversations daily with dispatch where they offer you something that you already received on your app. We're trying to make the best of it now, because as you can see here, a third of our loads are not being at all touched by anyone, so that's a big problem. And we will increase, of course, our efforts in trying to offer you the best loads there. So we will not call you for any load that comes up, and you decide to not decline it. You decide to not do anything about it. But on a
Right.
specific ones, we will call and try to book it.
Right. Right. The drivers is the number of drivers who were booked. So drivers, 34 of our drivers were booked on 41 loads. Like Munir said, some of them were future loads, right? So we book a person for 8 a.m. pickup and 4 p.m. delivery, and then we also book them on a 5 p.m. pickup after their load. The win ratio is very, very important, and it's very low as well. So 7.47% win ratio means that is the amount of loads we were winning compared to the amount of bids we were placing. 7% win ratio means you place 100 bids to get 7 loads. And to shrink that down to like a per load basis, my math is not the best, but I think it's like 13 bids maybe to get 1 load or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
because
That's close to
10
it.
bids
Yeah.
for 1 load would be 10% win ratio. So this is like 12, 13, whatever the mathematicians can comment on. But it's just telling, and I remember when we first rolled out the app, our drivers were questioning or complaining, that they were placing 4, 5, 6 bids and they were not winning anything. And that's kind of when they were first exposed to how things really go for us. Um, Now this is 7.47 yesterday. The day before, which was a much better day, was almost, it's 11.5%, so much higher. And those are the changes that we then try to track and see, well, why was Monday we were winning 12% or 11.5% of our bids, but Tuesday we were only winning 7.5% of our bids.
It's a good question, man, and a lot of ins and outs, a lot of deep
Other
thinking is
variables, yeah.
variables. Yeah, deep thinking is needed to explain that. We did in the beginning of the day, we did have less available drivers because I mean less available as of available now drivers, and that might impact 1% of it. But then there is another percent and another percent that in the equation. But like I said, once again, I think that they're just out of Canada yesterday. There was we can check that in the system as well. There was less loads coming up. We had
Hmm.
problem getting drivers out of there, and since that's a high that's a hub for a lot of our drivers and where we like and where we want to send them. And if there is a um, low number of loads out of there, likelihood of us booking more loads, of course, is lower. So I guess that's part of the reason as well.
Right, right. And average LA is average waiting time. So yesterday was 8.5 hours. So at the time of booking the driver was waiting on average 8.5 hours. Now this counts people that finished a load at, 7 p.m. On Monday and then waited until, like 7 a.m. on Tuesday. That would technically be 12 hours of waiting time. So we obviously want our waiting time to be as low as possible. The only thing, the only time we want our drivers to sit is when they want to sit, when they're resting, when they're, doing whatever they want to do, and not drive. But as soon as people tell us I'm ready to drive, our goal is to book them on the best load we can find as quickly as humanly possible. So next thing I want to dive into, Munir, is the new BHX margin structure that's going to help us get some longer loads. Essentially, what we were doing in the past is our percentage that we were adding on loads was the same on short loads as it was long loads. And we found that it was more difficult to book these longer loads that some of our drivers like a lot because we were trying to add the same, whatever it was, 15, 16, 17, whatever percentage we were doing on some shorter loads. So what we've done is we've made it to where the longer the shipment, the less we add on top of it percentage wise, right? And we are expecting that that's going to help us book some longer loads, right? Because whatever, I'm just making up numbers now, but if the driver is if we're looking at a 2,000-mile shipment and the driver's bid is, let's say, $2,000, well, if you take 15% of 2,000, that's what, $300. Um, and sometimes it's hard to add that amount on top of a load, especially when you look at even bigger loads, like a $3,000 load. So now we've made it to where our percentage is dropped, and we might only add 200 on that kind of a load in order to give our driver a better chance to get it. Um, and then the other big one is that waiting time based discounts. So let me pause the video and then I'll pull it up and then we can kind of talk about that for a minute. All right, so to explain this, I gotta first explain this. This is what we call PIT, prime idle time. Prime idle time is meant to measure the amount of waiting time a person has during prime time hours. Now we're figuring that prime time hours are from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Those are the business hours. Those are the times when we realistically have a decent chance to book somebody. And those are the times that is obviously the biggest priority and the biggest focus on. Now we are 24/7 and we do book loads 24/7, but the majority of loads that are booked are in this green area, and we call this PIT, prime idle time. So this is measuring the time during business hours. So what we're building now, and it's not live yet. I think it'll maybe be live today, hopefully. Um, is let me share this. Discounting the price to the customer based on that prime waiting time. Okay, so this is bit time. So if a driver has been waiting for 4 hours during that prime idle time, so that means, for example, a driver is waiting from 8 in the morning until noon, right? We are going to discount the price that we're bidding for the driver by 2.5%, and we're going to lower our margin by 2%, right? The example here that I'm using is if the normal rate for the load would be 90 cents per mile, and if it's a 700-mile load, and let's say that our percentage is 16%, we can put 15 for number's sake. The normal rate for the driver would be 630. However, because the waiting time is getting long and because we want to get the driver booked, right? He's already been waiting for 4 hours during the prime time. Then we would lower our rate to 615, right? So it's not well, the driver's rate would be dropped. So instead of getting 630, the driver would get 615. Now, the normal bid rate to the customer would have been 770. However, because of these discounts, the customer's rate would now be 706, right? So we're dropping our price by $60, and obviously that gives us a better chance to book the driver. If the prime idle time, waiting time gets up to 6 hours, right? So for example, you're waiting from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m., then we're discounting the driver's bid amount by 5%, and we're discounting ours by 3% as well. So what happens is for the driver, it's not really a huge change, right? Instead of getting 630, so this normal represents what he would normally get without these discounts. So instead of getting 630, he's getting 600. Obviously, every penny counts, but we're talking about situations where waiting time is creeping up and we want to get you booked. But on this side is where really the big difference can be seen. Instead of us bidding 770 to the customer, we're bidding 680. So we're discounting the customer's bid rate by $90, which obviously gives us a much better chance to win the load. And then that continues to go up, right? So at 8 hours, we're discounting driver by 7.5%. We're discounting ours by 4. So what happens for the driver is there's about a $50 discount. And again, 8 hours means you're waiting from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. I'm sorry, 4 p.m., right? So you've been waiting all day, right? Or it means you're waiting from, let's say, 2 p.m. So 1, 2, 3, 4 until 1, 2, 3, 4. So until like noon, right? So this carries over. Um, 10 hours, this is what happens, 16 hours. So 16 hours of prime idle time really means you've been waiting a day and a half because one day can have 10 hours of pit time max, right? From 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. So if you have been waiting for 16 hours, means you waited a whole day plus 6 hours the next day, right? Um, I just want to comment on this too. When we say that we're discounting BHX by 2% and the drivers by 2.5%, remember in most cases, the driver has like 80 to 90% of the load. In most cases, driver has 85% of the load pay. And BHX has, let's say, 10 to 20%, on average about 15% of the load pay. So really by us discounting 2% from our rate, or if we go down here, right, by us discounting 7% of our load rate, if we go from 10 or if we go to from 15% minus 7, right, we're dropping our rate in half in some cases of what we would normally, while at most, we're dropping the driver's rate by 10 to 20% of their 85%, right? So the point is here we are taking a far more significant reduction than the driver would be on with these discounts.
Right.
Anything to add on this?
Yeah, so guys, we in a way already do this manually when it's needed, meaning that we communicate with you on your rate and we're trying to do our best on our end as well. But this is a systematic change that will help us systematically because right now we're doing it case by case. And if case by case, that means that sometimes we're not doing it and we might be hurting your business. So like this, we will put some order into this and hopefully reduce the waiting time um, as much as possible.
Right, right. Cool, man. The other couple things, the app has been crashing for some people. We're fixing that. We bumped it up to a top priority. And then the other thing is we have rolled out the merchandise finally for the first time in 10 years systematically. We've built a little shop where our drivers can choose what it is they want. Um, and we are providing everybody with some free stuff and the ability to purchase additional things. So everybody received a discount code. You either get $30 off, $60 off, or $120 off, depending on how long you've been with the company. So what you do is you add whatever items you want, you apply your discount. In some cases, it's going to be free. If you added more items, than the discount you have, you may have to pay for whatever it is you wanted above and beyond the free stuff. The way we will do that is we'll just deduct the money from your check. The items, unfortunately, will take a while to get here. It's about 45 days for production and delivery. So that's the first big order we're placing, and that's why there's that major delay. But going forward, that should be smoother. But I actually already got the samples, and the quality just blew me away. It's amazing quality. I think our drivers are gonna love it. And this is just the beginning on that as well. Hopefully, we get some cool new stuff in, and we're gonna keep that pumping as well. So, any other parting words from you, Munir?
Well, not really. What I said on the at the meeting that we had, and I hope some of you guys that were not attending went through the recording of the meeting. I said that now is the time to open up more when it comes to where we go and stop being too picky because we're entering spring period and slowly but surely, historically, work will pick up March, April, and then of course there is a whole different story May, June, July, August as those summer months. So this is the time where we stop being so picky, in my opinion. Open yourself up wherever you feel comfortable of going without you making that decision. Open yourself up for dispatch. Trust the dispatch. We are all here experts, and some of us have been doing this and bidding for years and years. We're experts in what we do, and you should trust us when it comes to certain things. So, I encourage you guys to open up a bit more. I in that meeting at that meeting as well. I shared an example what good um, setup is historically. People that are having that kind of setup, similar setup, are earning the most. So, if you have any questions or difficulties, properly set up, call dispatch, and we'll help you out.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up again. And I was going to comment on it last time, but I forgot to, so I'll comment on it again. Um, we always obviously focus on in the office the numbers. We look at how much our drivers are earning. We see that they're earning less than before. We speak with a lot of drivers that are unhappy about the earnings. We look at the rate per mile. We see that it's dropped. So our focus is constantly how to maximize the amount that our drivers are making while minimizing the amount of time they're sitting and waiting beyond, as I said, what they want to wait. Um, the only thing I would add, then the only caveat to that is if you want to make more money, Muni's advice is applicable to you. If you are content and happy with what you're making, we're not pressuring anyone when we say open up your map.
Indeed.
We're saying that in response to people who say, hey, my earnings have been dropping. I'm not making enough money. I'm struggling. I need to figure something out. Because there's a lot of people that come to us with those complaints and those concerns, and then we look at their map and their settings, and it's atrocious. Half of America is closed off. The other half is yellow, and they take forever to reply to bids. And then, there's a bunch of expired loads, and then the little green that we have, we can't do a whole lot within because of other settings, right? So if you want to make more, what Munir is saying, take that advice. Open up your map. Understand that this time requires flexibility with pricing. Accept the fact that every load is not going to be this phenomenal dream load. You're going to have some cheaper paying loads, not because we're not trying, but simply because sometimes that's what you got to do to keep moving. And then for the other people that are happy with what they're making, that have figured out a good map for them, don't feel pressure, man. If you're happy, we're happy. Literally, if you're
Indeed.
happy making any amount, we are even happier. We built the app wanting to give our drivers the freedom to do what they want to do, and that has benefited us in so many different ways. And yeah. So I just wanted to kind of specify that and clarify that bit. We will
No.
conclude there. We'll do this again tomorrow with more updates. It'll be shorter tomorrow because we're not going to have to define all of the different things we're looking at. Um, we're going to continue, guys, to do everything in our power to keep you moving, keep you earning as much as you'd like to earn. Um, these times are what they are, and we're going to navigate through them in the best possible way. And God willing, we'll come out on top.
God willing.
God willing. Goodbye.